we lose our identities when we put our identity in someone else's hands. And so I wrote the book in 8 weeks, the first book, and someone had said to me, "Hey, Maureen, life coaching, have you heard of this? Because that's you. That's what you've been doing your whole life. You really should do this." And so the rest is her story. It just took off from there. The dogs they're so relatable.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes.
Live from Pflugerville, Texas, it's Truth Tastes Funny, the game show where everybody wins eventually. And I am your host, Hersh Repoon. We already played our intro, so I don't really need to do that. But my guest today is Maureen Scanlon. Maureen is not a talk show or game show host. She's a coach, but she's also a podcaster. She's an author, an award-winning author, and it all comes down to puppy love, I think, in one way or another. She has a book called "My Dog is More Enlightened Than I Am." She also wrote "My Dog is My Relationship Coach," which I completely relate to. And among the techniques that Maureen teaches are how to be your own best friend. And I think that's another one. Oh, by learning, by kind of following the patterns and habits of our canine friends. So there is much to talk about. And welcome, first of all, welcome to Truth Tastes Funny, Maureen.
Thank you, my friend. How are you today?
I am great, thank you. I am wonderful now. Speaking of dogs, on my way up to the studio, I was carrying my lunch a little while ago of meatballs, which I tripped and spilled them all over the carpet. And I thought, well, worst comes to worst, I will taste dog hair in my food. And, so what? It's okay. I love Toby. You met Toby. Did you meet Toby last time?
Yep. Toby was on camera with us.
You met Toby when I was on your show. He is going to be with my wife today because she's working from home today. And when he has the choice, he does not join me in my work here. He would much rather be with his mom. So that's the way it goes.
It's like the old show in the 90s. Remember the dinosaurs where the baby was like, "Not the mama." Well, that's what.
Oh, right.
Right.
I don't remember. Yeah.
You're not the mama. It was
Not
a
the
show.
mama.
Yeah. Where they would hit the baby would hit the dinosaur dad on the head with a pan and say, "Not the mama." So you're not the mama.
Well, but we're not talking about dinosaurs today. We're talking about life. I mean, we are talking about life. We're talking about relationships, but start us off with the books and just the overall love of animals and dogs and respect for their behavior. Tell me a little about where that comes from.
Yeah. So my story started, obviously, we all start somewhere, and it really was, growing up, I was sort of conditioned that you have to do things to get love from people. It wasn't unconditional. You had to do what they wanted, and you had, the more you did, the more love you got. And so that sort of carried on into adulthood. I got married very young at 18 years old, got pregnant with my oldest daughter right away. And this was an abusive, alcoholic, domestic violence relationship. And it just instilled more of what I had already learned at home was you've got to do more to be loved. You're not good enough. You're not doing enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. And I just carried this pattern through my life and repeated it even after I finally decided to divorce him. And that was only because he cheated on me, um, not because I had found any self-worth or self-respect. And so I kind of repeated this pattern, just more relationships. I was a love addict. I didn't know how to be alone, didn't want to be alone, never felt I was good enough, always feeling like I lacked something to be loved unconditionally. I finally reached a point where broke up out of the another long-term relationship, and I decided, and this is key, listeners, decided when we make that final choice to say something has to give. I remember doing this sort of a soul journey, sitting on my bed, just boohooing, feeling bad for myself, and thinking I'm the only constant in this mess that my life has been. And as I'm sitting there, my dogs were there always by my side. And my little Chihuahua, Jade, she's a chunky little girl. She's 14 pounds. And she was just looking at me and licking my tears and just looking at me with these beautiful little brown eyes, like I was the world. And I don't know why, but I had this profound epiphany moment where I was like, how can she unconditionally love me with the mess that I am? And I don't love me like that. And that was when it was the turning point in my life that I said, that's it. Stop it. Stop looking for love everywhere else. No one's going to love you until you love you. You're not going to have any worth. You don't need to get validation from anyone else until you validate yourself. And for the first time in my life now, mind you, I was 45 at this point. I had gone a lot of years just trying to take care of everyone else and not finding that satisfaction and fulfillment that I was searching for. And that's one of the things we do when we date is we look for someone else to fill that void. And I was looking for that for so long. So I started this journey of going out and doing stuff. I'd never gone to dinner by myself. I'd never gone to the movies. I remember going to the coffee shop and being mortified, like people are thinking I'm a loser and look, she's single, probably not very lovable. I mean, really undoing this mindset of what I thought of myself. And I just kept building and building, going hiking, joining these meetup groups. I was with a group that was new to Phoenix, and I'd known Phoenix my whole life. So it was just, I would get this validation when I'd meet people. And it wasn't because I was a part of a couple. And finally, I did the whole, who was that? Sally Field acceptance speech, the Academy Award. They love me. They really love me. I got that, where I finally
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'm fun. I'm intelligent. I'm fun to be with. And I just started building this self-esteem, and it changed the trajectory of everything. And it's because of the dogs that it started that journey for me. I went back out into the dating world a couple of years later, attracted my husband, still stayed true to who I was. When I found myself losing myself, and we each had things we hadn't healed yet. Mine was enabling my oldest daughter, and my husband's was fear of getting into a complicated situation. He had a very simple life. And so he started pulling away, working a lot. And I found myself doing my codependent thing, bringing him dinner to work until I was like, what are we doing here? We're not doing this again. So recognizing those patterns that you can go back to even when you think you've healed them. And so met my husband. We dated for 4 months. I broke up with him. 6 months later, I healed my issues. He healed his issues, and we got back together. And finally, I realized what a relationship needed to be. I had to be whole. I had to really love who I was and stay true to who I was. How many times do people say, I don't want to be in a relationship, or I've been in a relationship and I lost myself? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
true thing. We lose our identities when we put our identity in someone else's hands. And so I wrote the book in 8 weeks, the first book, and someone had said to me, "Hey, Maureen, life coaching, have you heard of this? Because that's you. That's what you've been doing your whole life. You really should do this." And so the rest is her story. It just took off from there. The dogs were, they're so relatable, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, when they say that a dog is man's best friend or humanity's best friend, it is very true that they don't, it is unconditional, you know, and they might get, they might get upset with us about something, but I think most of the time we project the worst qualities onto them, but they really don't display them. You know, they're patient, they're tolerant, you know, they are definitely concerned when we are not well, you know, or the kids aren't well, and they immediately display like concern in, you know, in my dog's case, he's tiny dog, but he's like a protector, you know, definitely has the idea of being a protector. And so all those qualities that are just, you know, and I think sometimes pet owners get a bad rap for oh, they can't make human friends. And so they, you know, they have you know, they're very close to their pets, or they're lonely and therefore they're whatever it might be. And it's so far off the mark, in my opinion, in that, you know, you really couldn't ask for a better friend. Um, you know, if I could ask Toby for a testimonial, I would. I don't know that he's ever actually, I would consider him a client per se, but but he's definitely a good character, a good character witness, because he's seen me in so many situations.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. Jade's really good at the side eye. She really like calls me out on my shit. You know,
yeah.
it's like she'll give you the side eye where you're like, "Are you judging me? Why are you judging me? What's going on?" But some of the examples in my book, think of this. They're so innately good and they're so innately unconditionally loving. They come here only for a short period of time, if we're lucky, 15 years, right? On average
Yeah.
for most breeds. And so they only have this short life because they have nothing to fix. Okay. We as human, we've got 100 years. We got a lot of crap to fix because we get in our own way. Just like you and I were talking off air, we create our own chaos.
Yeah.
We repeat mistakes over and over and over. I mean, think about training dogs. You teach them something, they get the reward, and now they know the right thing to do. We don't do that. We just keep making the same damn mistakes, whether we get a bowl of ice cream out of it or not. We are so slow at learning. And I think all dogs have different personalities. I truly believe a dog picks you. I truly believe they pick up on like our personalities are aligned, just like it is with our friends and people we choose to hang out with in our circle.
Or don't pick you. You know, sometimes you get a
Yeah.
pet that is really not want you.
Yeah.
They really don't feel they're right for you.
Well,
Excuse me.
it's like Toby favoring your wife. You know, Toby
Yeah.
just feels like maybe that more of the nurturing feminine energy from your wife. And she's like, "Well, I like you, dude." Like my husband says he's the cat butler, but he's like, but our cat really, really adores you, Maureen. And the
Yeah.
dog, same with Jade, is like, she's like a guy's a guy's dog. She's a girl, but she lacks the men. And I'm chop liver whenever there's a guy around, whether it's my
Right.
son-in-law, my grandson, or my husband. Where my Australian derpy dog, Callie, I am her world. Like she's right here. She can't be more than 2 feet away from me at any time, no matter where I am, even the bathroom. I mean, she
Yeah.
comes up with her little head right in my lap. So the thing is think about, though, as humans, when someone does you wrong, you're going to hold a grudge. You're mad. You're going to remember that thing. You might take months to get over it. Think of a dog who's been in abusive situations. Think of these dogs that are in these rescues or in these pounds where people just had to move away and leave them, or it just didn't work out because they didn't get along with the kids, or they had a cat, or any reason in the book that a human can dump a dog, and a dog will give a fresh new chance to anyone who wants to come and take them in again. Now that if that isn't beautiful and different right there, if that's unconditional, think of when you go on vacation and you're gone for a week and you come back and maybe you board them or maybe you have someone stop in and feed them. That dog is not like turning their back to you when you walk in their door in the door, like, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for
Right.
abandoning me. I really appreciate that you had a good time. No, your dog is coming up to you like so excited to see you. It's those beautiful things when you're sad or you're sick.
Yeah.
They're laying there next to you. They're not trying to play fetch, or maybe some of them are, but they're bringing you toys, or it's just if we could live more like them. And that's what the books are about, is just stop for a minute looking at your stuff in your life, the crap in your life, your problems, your stresses. Just stop for a minute and watch them. I observe them all the time. And I love their curiosity. Think about it. They're in your yard, the same yard all the time. They've been out there 100 times, but do they ever hesitate to go out there and look for a new bug or a new, flower or something? They always are curious.
Right.
We as humans stop being curious. We're like, same thing, same day, same shit, same neighborhood, same house.
Right.
So those are the things that just really geared me for writing, the first two, and then I'm in process of writing the third one too, because they're constantly showing me new stuff. It's the coolest thing. I never run out of material. How could you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so let's talk about the relationship part. I mean, it makes sense that, you pursued coaching. It definitely suits you. It's it makes sense that, here you are on the other side of all this other stuff. You have a lot of lessons that you learn through a lot of pain and a lot of challenge. And so you have the experience that's hard won, but you also have that ability to talk to people and relate to people and be empathetic. So when it comes to relationships, like romantic relationships, where do you start with a client?
So depending on what stage of the love process you're in. So if you're getting out of a damaging relationship or a divorce, then we're going to work on your self-esteem and we're going to build on what didn't work in that relationship so you don't look for the same person with a different face. So we got to break those cycles. So the heartache repair healing is one thing. And that's one of my favorites because of course I was there, so I knew everything not to do. So it's always great to have a life coach that has been through stuff, so we can say, well, we know this probably doesn't work, so we can help you with what does work. So that's one of my favorites because I know what it takes to learn how to be your own best friend and how to be independent and to finally really validate yourself. Now, the dating coaching is so fun. I love the dating coaching because people, listeners, Hersh, we don't know what we want. We know what we don't want. And so
Yeah.
my job, I take very serious, is to finally hone in on what is it that you want. And I'm not talking 6'1", brown hair, brown eyes, he likes to work out. That's not what you want. That's not who the person is that is the best match for you.
Right.
So what we do is I create with you this avatar. And this avatar is, what are the characteristics you most admire in a person? What is something, if you see your perfect mate, what does that look like on an emotional level, on a soul level, on a spiritual level, on a physical level?
Right.
And I think we are so limited, how we were brought up, how we were conditioned by society or our parents, because how many times have you heard, well, nobody's perfect?
Yeah.
right? Well, no one's looking for perfection, but we are looking for perfect for us. And there is a big difference, and it is allowed. So here's a really good example. My parents were very they have an idea of who my mate should have been, right? And all the stuff I had gone through, they loved people who were completely dysfunctional for me. And calling them out on that, they weren't real happy with that, but I had to stop trying to people please, date someone that my family would approve of. And we do this a lot, women especially. We date someone our friends and family would approve of, even though they're not a good fit for us. We go out on dates and we look at someone and we look at their potential. We don't look at the person right in front of
Right.
us. We think, oh, he could be like this, or he could do this. We completely are blind, color blind to the red flags,
Yeah.
because we think nobody's perfect. That's okay. What we're not doing is building that bar. And that's what I do with the avatar, is we create a bar that they're non-negotiables. You do not go below this bar. So some of the and some of the tiniest little things that you need is fine, where people would say, well, that's kind of petty, or that's kind of not important.
Yeah.
For example, um I dated a guy who didn't like butter on his toast, and it annoyed me. Of course, there are a lot of other factors about the man. He was very selfish and sort of demeaning to women,
Well,
but
toast haters usually are, butter haters,
funny how that's like the
butter
straw that,
buffers. They call them butter buffers. They will refuse to put butter on their toast. I know the
right,
type.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, the monsters, they're out there. You got to watch out. So to me, like, food was really, I love food. And I was not the girl who goes on a date and has a salad. I was like, give me the big steak and the potato, give me all of it. When I went out with my husband and we were looking at the menu, he said, well, what looks good to you? And I said, well, this and this and this, I can't decide. And he said, let's get all three and let's just share it. And I was like, oh, yes, yes. He orders the whole bottle of wine, not just a glass. I like a generous man. I like a man who will try new things. So that it's the tiniest things that
Yeah.
you think that shouldn't bother you. No, we have to accept little idiosyncrasies. I mean, there's things now he does that I'm like, ugh, but I wouldn't divorce him over it because the rest of it fits.
Right.
But it's okay when you're dating to say, if someone's rude to the staff, the wait staff, that's a non-negotiable. If you are a kind person and you think you should be kind to everyone and have manners and respect, but you make an excuse, which we do, especially on those first dates. Well, he was probably nervous, or, well, I mean, it did take a while for our food. So if you start making excuses right there on the date, well, just think of what you're going to be making excuses for later. And that's when those red flags and the true person that they are comes out.
So it seems like, a good match would be pretty smooth sailing naturally. Are there, because you see these long tempestuous kind of relationships, but they're at least they're convinced that they're deeply in love, or they're meant to be, or they're destined for one another, and yet they whip up that chaos, or they whip up that conflict. And there are people also who are most comfortable in a storm. They are most comfortable in amidst some chaos. It keeps them, feeling vital. It keeps them, and that could be in business, it could be in life, with their friendships, with their marriage, with their parents, could be anything. But they thrive on some kind of disorder. I've worked for people like that. They just like it messy. They don't like it ordered. So how do we know when a relationship is worth working through, worth working on, saving? What are the criteria?
I love what you just said, that some people like that chaos and they actually thrive on it. that's a sign of an unhealing that came from your childhood. If you always had chaos in your home and that was the norm for you, it's not normal to have status quo
Right,
and to
right.
have calmness. So that's like an internal thing we got to work on before we even get into a relationship. So if you're dating someone who likes this chaos, they have work to do, and it's not your job to fix them. And you can say, I really don't think it's a good time for us to be in a relationship. And that was one of the things I learned when I went out on these dates, when to remove that codependence that I used to do, I established a saying for me. As soon as I saw a red flag or I saw something that reminded me of someone from the past that it didn't work out with, I would say, I don't think we're a good fit. You're a good person, but I don't think you're good for me. And they
Mhm.
couldn't really argue with it. They couldn't say, well, I'll be a better person, or I'll become better for you. No, you can't argue with that. I said we're not a good fit, and that just isn't going to work for me. It gave me an out instead of feeling guilty for not wanting to see someone again if I didn't want to. But the criteria, I love that you say that if you're in a tumultuous relationship and if it's constantly we're either fighting or making up, we both have some internal stuff we've got to work on. Both of you need to get a life coach. And you could do couples coaching as well. And then I've done that where I do the couple and then I'll meet separately with them to work on their own stuff. So here's the thing though, there's questions to ask. The criteria is, am I allowed to be who I am with this person? Do I have freedom to choose the life that I want? Respect. I think, and this is something I wrote in the book when I did a little survey on Facebook and asked couples, what's more important to you in a relationship, trust or respect? And someone said, trustspect. And I loved
Mhm.
it. I'm like, you're right. It's like hand in hand, because in my marriages and relationships, that word love, we just kind of threw that around. I love you. Okay, I love chocolate cake too, but I'm not going to eat a chocolate cake every day for the rest of my life. So really the trust and respect, because the respect helps build our self-esteem and also gives us that freedom, which in return we are able to be whole, and then we can be our best person for you. And
Mhm.
the trust part of it is, that's just hand in hand with the respect, because I have to trust that you won't hurt me. If I'm going into a relationship fearful, and a lot of people will say I have trust issues. Well, you're going to have to fix trust issues long before you get into a relationship with someone else, because your issues will carry forth to that person. If they're 5 minutes late at the grocery store, you're going to have a problem, not them. It's not their fault, and that's when you're going to have conflict. So a lot of this, when I work with couples, I'm certified in infidelity recovery. So that's a hard one. Yeah, once someone has done that betrayal, yeah, that's a hard thing to work going back to the trust that you originally had. So there's a lot of factors. And to be honest with you, when it comes to my couples coaching, I think when it comes to most couples, it's just that we stopped putting the effort in that we did
Mm.
in the beginning. We just didn't keep the momentum going and the consistency. And with anything in life, what happens? If you lose momentum, it eventually stops. And that's when usually I see the couples is it stopped. There's no passion, there's no intimacy, there's no connecting. We're not taking time for each other. We're not parenting well together. We don't enjoy our careers. Like it's got tentacles. If you're not okay in your most intimate relationship, it's going to affect everything else in your life.
So if it's gotten to that point, is is there a kind of a rule of thumb about how to get that back, if it can be gotten back? Because it would seem like almost, everybody would go through some form of this. There's just too much going on in life. If you have kids, if you have work that's demanding, if you have other demands outside of the relationship, there are people who they're a unit, and there's really they don't pursue anything outside of their unit because that's what makes them most happy. And then maybe they seem to get along really well, but it's just them. But if they open up their world to include a lot of other things, it's going to be a drain on that, romance or passion or whatever it is. So what when they come to you, what do you do?
Well, and with anything in life, wherever your priority is where your focus goes. So if you're not paying attention because you're focused on so many other things, you're not focused on your partner and your relationship, your marriage, then there's no energy there. So it's lost that momentum. For me, the most important thing that we start off with is reconnecting. Like remembering, why are we together? We don't have handcuffs on our wrists every day that keep us together. We're there because we choose to be. And if you don't choose to be there every day and put effort into it, then go ahead and go your separate way. Then we've outgrown one another. So for me, the first step with my couples is reconnecting and getting them to reprioritize and put time back into their relationship. And that means do those date nights, have sex. I've had couples where I've had to schedule sex for them because
Yeah.
they just are like, we're too busy or I don't feel like it. I mean, I've had to do that. And then they're like, oh God, Maureen, thank God you did that because we probably wouldn't have done that. I mean, it gets to that point where you prioritize everything else and then you wonder why your marriage and relationship has just gone flat. So it's, I have something that I make people create a date jar. I do really unconventional things with couples, which is why I love the couples coaching because I get to make them do silly things. So for instance, they have to fill out different pieces of paper and write down ideas of things to do. And then they put it in their date jar. And the only excuse is weather or health. Those are the only reasons you can't do it. So if you can get a sitter on Friday night or you can get away on Saturday, you pick out of it and you go do whatever it is that's on the date jar and you go and have fun with it. One of the ideas, I have a bunch of date ideas in my dog is my relationship book is, go to like a secondhand thrift store and pick a theme, so you say, okay, the theme is clowns, go find an outfit or a little knickknack or, find the most things you can with clowns or 70s era, go find a 70s outfit, go try it on in the fitting room. It's what we're doing is reigniting the fun, the childlike fun that you did originally when you first started dating.
Well, there are a couple of things that makes me want to ask about. One is, a lot of the relationship stuff in the early stages is the newness of it, right? And so as it becomes both you've now acquired the relationship, you've created it, or you've built even a really good foundation, but it's not new. It's not going to be new again. So the thrift shop example, which is a cool idea, someone might say, oh, well, that's very contrived. We're just pretending to do something fun, or we're forcing it. We're forcing something fun and we want it to be like magical and like it was. So how do we get past that?
Oh, that's interesting. I could dig into that one a little bit. Where with you, we have to talk off air. No, when you say forcing, it says that I'm feeling obligated and it's not a want. So if you're doing something in a relationship that feels forced, then your heart genuinely isn't in it for the unconditional reasons of I really enjoy this person and I really want to do the most I can to make this the best, healthiest relationship I can. Partnership that I can.
Yeah.
So if it's forced, then we got to look at why does it feel forced? And, that's just an idea. It can also be, like you said, so the newness of the dating thing wears off, but you can still do new things together as if you were dating. So my
Yeah.
husband and I'm constantly he's he likes to know what we're doing, but I'm like the surprise girl. And so it drives him absolutely crazy. And so I'm the one that's always like looking for the weirdest, craziest, fun things to do. So for instance, this Sunday, we're going to an elephant conservation place here right out. It's in Georgetown,
Oh,
Texas.
wow.
So we didn't get to, we take a trip for our anniversary and we didn't get to. So I'm that girl who's like, let's go find something unique to do. Let's go. So you can have newness. And he loves that. Even though it drives him
Yeah.
crazy that he doesn't know what we're doing, he loves the surprises and the different unique things that I bring to the table. So you both can do that. And I think doing one of the main things I say to my couples, and you'll find this too. So we both have different interests, right? First of all, my husband's an engineer and I'm a super creative person. So I'm like artsy and I like scrapbooking and all this. So the thing is, my husband loves art. He loves to go to museums and see art. And I like to create art. So you have two different interests. A lot of people will say, well, my husband likes cars and I'm not into cars. And he'll say, I don't know, she's into, whatever.
Leather.
Yeah, she's into okay.
She could be into leather and he would be into cars and they would have that crossover.
Oh, see, there you go. No, we
Yeah.
need to, like, most people are going to be like, pretty far apart. But the problem is, if you love someone, remember this, listeners, if there's nothing else you take from this, if it matters to you, it matters to me. That is how you show mutual love and respect. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to always be, I need to have my needs met. It's, I need to meet your needs. And I know that you'll meet my needs. And that's a big thing. Women are from Venus, men are from Mars kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Women want to be loved. Men want to be respected. Well, we can find that, but that's where the line usually is drawn when couples come to me is, she doesn't feel loved. He's not paying attention to her. He's not doing anything romantic. They're not having intimacy. And he doesn't feel respect because she never validates what he's doing for the household or for her. So one of the most important things that I do for my couples is we do a couch time. So every night when you get home with your partner after dinner, after the kids are in bed, turn off the TV, turn off the phone, sit on the couch, face each other, touch each other, look at each other in the eyes and say, tell me about your day. How are you doing? Check in mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. How's everything going? And then when you're men, this is for you men specifically, when your wife has an issue or your girl has an issue, don't try to fix it. This is the problem. You have to say this. Do you want comfort? Do you want to vent? Or do you want a solution? Because men, bless your hearts, you just want to help us. You want to fix it. And we don't want you to always fix it. So echo what your partner says. So, hey, Hersh, how was your day today? Tell me how your day was, Hersh.
Oh, my day was exhausting and crappy. And I spilled my meatballs all over the carpet.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That would hurt my heart if I dropped meatballs. Did you have to clean it up?
Yes.
Okay. Were you sad? Did you go get more meatballs?
No, no.
But you're exhausted. So that was probably just more on top of everything else that was going on in your day, huh?
Yep.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. Well, is there anything I can do for you? Do you want a hug?
Yeah, hug.
Okay. See, that's what we do. We have to be there. We have to echo what our partner is saying. Oh, you know what? I could have said, well, you need to be more careful carrying meatballs.
Right.
Like, watch what you're doing, or just sit down in the kitchen and don't carry your meatballs around the house.
Yeah, but that's right. But you're right, Maureen, because that little bit of understanding goes a long way, Yep. And sometimes I feel like I'm not sure what to do because I know that thing about the fixing. I've learned that it isn't a fix necessarily that they're asking for. If your partner wants a fix, they will specifically request a fix.
Yes.
They will say, "Can you fix X?"
Correct. And this is something that my husband taught me about transparent expectations. Transparent
Mhm.
expectations are, Hersh, if you loved me, you would know what I need. No, man, you're not a mind reader. You don't know day to day how your person is feeling. We
Right.
need to use our words and speak. And my husband will say that, use your words. And I do, I'm guilty of the I'm fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that because I'm a flight. There's fight or flight,
Mhm.
freeze, and I'm a flight girl. Just because I was in the past in these abusive relationships, it still creeps in a little bit. And my husband will get me out of it by saying, use your words. Is there anything I can do? And I love it when he uses the question rather than saying, you know what you should do, like
Yeah.
that one just annoys the heck out of me is don't tell me what I should do because I'm stubborn and obstinate and I will do absolutely the opposite of what you just told me I needed to do. But we need to ask, is there anything I can do to help? Or would you like to hear my opinion or would you like to know my thoughts on it? See, if we're offering to help, but giving the other person the choice, that's a lot different because the person gets to feel like they're still in control. No one wants to be taken over. And that's what we do a lot of times as couples. And think about if I would have said, you're clumsy and you shouldn't be carrying meatballs around the house, man,
Yeah.
or of course you would trip. You always trip. Think about how that probably resonates for a lot of us in our childhoods. If you had critical parents or
Yeah.
no, or people in your life that were critical or ex-spouses that were demeaning and critical. I mean, we're never going to help each other by pointing out each other's flaws. We all know our flaws. We all know we screw up. You screwed up with your meatballs. Like me telling you screwed up with your meatballs is not going to make you feel any better about tripping with your meatballs.
Right. No.
So my job, if I love you unconditionally as a partner, my job is to ease your pain and to love you through whatever you're going through. So,
Yeah.
honey, it's no big deal. You dropped your meatballs. Are there any stains on the carpet? Let me go clean that up for you.
Well,
Right?
there you hit on something there because so much is what we perceive based on our own fears. Like we started by talking about, loving ourselves and having to love ourselves and all that. That plays a part later because the partner could say, oh, well, are there any stains on the carpet? It's a very simple thing because if there are, we should clean them up. And it's like, I could see myself in some cases having a reaction. I cleaned it up. I put this spray stuff on, or I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in a minute. That's a thing that I find. Fortunately, I'm aware of it, so I can try to combat it. And when you have kids, when you have as many as I have, you kind of learn. You see all these traits, and you try not to, like you just mentioned, you try not to create that anxiety in them that however it got created in you. It probably wasn't, I definitely wasn't my parents' intent to make me anxious about certain things. My mom had anxiety about certain things and just transferred it to me. It's that simple. I don't think she
Yeah.
wanted it either.
Absolutely not. And again, we're just carrying this stuff generation to generation and it's our job to be aware that we're carrying this on and let's like stop this thing. What you're talking about is super common. Defensiveness
Yeah.
in couples, conflict resolution is something that I work on with couples where we stop saying you're so klutzy, you tripped, you always spill meatballs. There's the generalization, you always or you never, or you. And I make couples stop and say, I feel upset that I've reminded you not to carry meatballs around the house and you disrespect my wishes and keep doing it. And when you spill them, now I have to go clean up the carpeting. I would love it if you could maybe think next time or be more courteous to me, and maybe not. If we could change that, that would be really appreciated. So approaching it that way instead
Yeah.
of, that's how we start these conflicts, that defensiveness, because what is defensiveness? It's insecurities. It's a
Yes. Yes.
feeling that someone is seeing right to us and the things that we fail at. And when then we have to defend ourselves, it's a natural human thing in our minds to defend who we are.
And you know how we say, we always hurt the one we love, or the people that we're closest to, they see the worst of us. In other words, we're not, in a, and this happens with kids too. In school, hopefully they are, but may be really, really well behaved. And then at home, they might have tantrums, and they
Yeah.
just feel comfortable enough around they understand authority, or they understand respecting adults. But in this particular thing, their guard is down. And that's what we do at home. Our guard is probably down. And so we might snap at people that we would ordinarily, if there were someone else that we cared about less, we would never think to lose our cool. We would just be
Yes.
totally buttoned up, totally appropriate. And,
Well, let's look at the perspective on that. First of all, we're most comfortable around the people that we love the most. So we're most free to be who we really are in all of our forms, good, bad, or indifferent. So that's a good thing when your children can, maybe they are acting out, but they feel the freedom to be who they are and express their emotions however they want around you guys. They have a role to play at school. They have their rules to follow, and that's exhausting. They should have the freedom to just be who they are at home. Second of all, think about, first of all, having that freedom, and it isn't an intentional, I'm trying to hurt the people that I love. It's that I get to be who I am. And then it's how we speak to one another in the home. So as couples, your children are little sponges. They are watching every single thing that you're doing. They're listening every single conversation you are having, whether they're in the room or they're not in the room. Okay. And that's one of the things that I tell my couples is you have to understand that you're teaching your children how to be a couple, how to be
Mhm.
a partner in a relationship later on. And that was one of the moments for me that made me decide to divorce my children's father. My girls were 6 and 8, and there was an incident where he was being violent. And I looked over at my two girls, and they just, their little faces were just frightened. And I that moment for me was like, oh my gosh, they're going to think this is okay. They're going to think this is the kind of guy that they should be with. And you can only do the best you can to get them out of that situation and to change how you behave. But as parents, speak to each other with respect, and that carries over to your children speaking to each other and you also with that respect. And it can be changed in the household. One of the activities that I have for couples for their parenting is a kindness chart. So, and
Mhm.
I did this with my granddaughters during COVID. They lived with me. And so every time they showed an act of kindness without doing it on purpose or being asked, but just showing genuine kindness, then they would get a point. And with certain amount of points, they got like their favorite treat or their favorite snack or a trip to the park. And you're encouraging them to spontaneously just be a kind person, not because they're going to get rewarded for it, which is also a bonus, but to just be better people to one another
Mhm.
in the household. Because you're right, in the house, we tend to feel like it's free reign. I can talk to anyone. And I know I'm rambling on this one. Um, to circle back around, the reason that we act like we do with the people that we love is because we know we are unconditionally loved by the people in our household, and we can act however we want to, and that love's not going to go away. The outside world, their friends, their teachers, their boyfriends and girlfriends, they know they have to act a certain way or people can walk away. But they
Yeah.
know in the household, no one's going to walk away. So they're free to be who they are. But we want them to be respectful and kind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot that, I mean, we could talk about so much stuff. It's really wonderful to have these conversations with you. Let's bring it back around to the dog for a minute. So, speaking of unconditional love, so because that's so easy, that relationship is so easy, do we sometimes just transfer our love to the dog, and just that takes care of a lot of the affection that we kind of feel we need in our lives? Like, it's just, you have the dog's going to cuddle, the dog's going to love you, the dog's not going to say anything to upset you, you're not going to piss off the dog, so there's no risk. Does a dog sometimes play a role of almost a receptor for, love and affection, so that people feel like they're getting the fix that they need on some level?
What a great question. And actually what I heard is, what I was hearing was, is our dog an enabler? Because we're actually giving them more of our emotion than we are maybe our partner and our family, because it's
Maybe.
easier. But you're right. You are right. So the thing is, think about how much communication happens between you and your dog, and not a single word is exchanged. So it's effortless with your
Right.
pet, with your dog, and your needs are met. And we want that same thing with our humans and our partners and our family, and that's just not going to happen. So we do tend to seek that comfort, and because we feel understood and loved and comforted and nurtured by our pets, because that's all they want is your attention. And if you're giving them attention, man, they're going to give you meet every need you have.
Right.
So that is such a great question. Now, that's what they're here for. That's their only purpose. My purpose in life is not to completely and totally fulfill every single need and emotion of my partner. So
Right.
that's the difference, is that is your dog's only purpose, but your partner's only purpose is not to fulfill your need, your
Right.
every
Right.
need. I mean, they are there to fulfill your needs, but you also have to fill some of your own needs and self-esteem and comfort yourself. And so that's where, therapy, coaching, all that comes in, where you have to learn how to self-soothe. You have to learn
Mhm.
how to find things that bring you joy. But I was talking to a gentleman yesterday about suicide on a podcast, suicide prevention. And he was talking about this Malinois society where they train dogs for people. I think every dog is an emotional support dog. So I don't think any dog
Yeah. Yeah.
needs to be certified. They're here to be emotional support, and that's what they are. If we could go to every single pound and every single rescue, and we could match up a dog with every single person on this planet, and maybe even 2 or 3 per person, think of how different this world would look. Think of
Oh, yeah.
how much more calm and how much less stressed we would be. I mean, you take your dog for a walk, you've got an outlet, right? Physically, you've got an outlet. You're going out, you're in the sunshine. When you're feeling sad, you're being comforted. If every person had, in my mind, had a dog, I think we would be in a much, that's my solution to world peace right there. Everyone
Yeah.
just needs a dog. There you go. Simple, right?
That's great. I was going to, as you were talking, I was thinking of the fact that if world leaders, for example, some have dogs, some don't, watch somebody with their dog, right? Someone could have a dog and not have the same, tenderness and all that other stuff, but watch someone who is a great owner to their dog, you know, and see how they treat the dog. And then, if they took a moment to reflect on whether they're really treating people as well as they treat the dog, or all of that. But
Yeah.
I think you have to be also in relationships tactful, so that, if you like if I were to sum up some of what you were saying, and I just said to my wife, what's great about the relationship that we have with the dog? And she says, what? And I would say, nobody talks. I don't know how well that would go over. That might be a tactless thing to say, but it's kind of the truth. Use your let the relationship kind of bloom in its natural essence. And don't try to fix everything.
Yeah.
Don't from the point of view of of the partner in the relationship that's inclination is to fix. I mean, why do we get upset? We get upset because of things we can't fix. Somebody's sick, somebody got robbed, something happened, something went bad, a pipe burst, something happens, and the anger comes from the inability to fix it. And so that's the thing we have to cope with. What happens when we can't fix something, or when fixing something isn't the answer?
Right. Well, it's lost. The foundation of it is loss of control. I don't have control over that. And that's a big thing in my coaching is I tell everyone, stay in your circle of control. You can only control your words, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. Anything outside of that, you can't control the weather. You can't control the people. You can't control the world. You can't control anything. So stay in your circle. And then the rest is just acceptance. And we could learn from the dogs that humans just use too damn many words. Let's just stop talking. I mean, 90% of communication between humans is nonverbal anyway. So that 10% is overkill. And half the time it's not effective anyway. Let's just be quiet. Let's just be and be a dog. Thank you.
I'm gonna end it there, but but I'm not gonna shut off the recording yet. But I am gonna end it there. Maybe I'll use this in the beginning, or we'll do so. But that's the perfect ending of the episode. But I was thinking that how often do we spend time trying to explain what we said that didn't come across the way we wanted to say it, and so now, had we not used any words or used fewer, we probably would be fine and everybody would have gone their merry way. Now we've said something, the reaction or the understanding wasn't what we intended. Now we have to backtrack. We have to explain. We have to go through all of this,
Yeah. Yeah. And, now we're just snowballing it because it doesn't matter because what the person heard, like what's that saying? You get one chance to make a first impression. When you say something hurtful, especially like in the heat of the moment with arguing, that's a big thing for me with conflict resolution with couples. And my husband and I are adamant that we do not say anything we will regret if we were not in an argument. So, that wound heals, but that scar remains. If you called me fat in an argument, I don't care how many times you say you're sorry after that. In the back of my mind, I'm going to think every day you think I'm fat. It's just human. Yeah. It's just our human mind that just does that. But I love that you say that. I have a new thing that I've created where, about love languages. Well, we're going to go from love languages now to love comprehension, because there's so much more to speaking love than just speaking. It's comprehending how someone feels loved. So that's one of my methods.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.